What are they? The junior Yankees? What do they call them?
The baby bombers.
The baby bombers, right?
That didn't go well yesterday.
It did not.
Today is a very special day because it is the only day of the year where there's no chance of me being negative. That's right, because it's opening day. And on opening day, all things are possible.
That's
on
true.
opening day, everybody has a chance to believe you're going to be okay. Unless you're an Oakland A's fan or one of the other 3 or 4 completely morbid teams. But, T, as we start, their opinions are so wide-ranging with this team. I know both papers had all their staffers do predictions, and, the win totals ranged from like 89 to 75 or something like that. I mean, a huge variance.
Last place to second place.
So the question is this. I don't want records and all of that. I just want to know if one reason they will make the playoffs or one reason they won't. Like the reasons behind the beliefs that you may or may not have here on opening day. And I've said it, dude. I mean, if there's one day where you just don't take positivity from people, it's opening day. But I think it is interesting how you, the Tiger fan, have such completely different viewpoints on this team. So I wanted to throw the number out, try to get a little baseball going early and get in the mix. But, Sully phrased it even better during the pre-show, and I want to give him credit for it. Sully, would you like to step to the dance floor? Because you had
Let's give him something.
He had such force in pre-show. He's like, no. This is how it's phrased.
Yeah, regarding the Tigers thing, obviously you're talking about.
Go ahead. Dance for everybody, Sully.
Well, I just want to, give us your one main reason why the Tigers will or will not compete for a World Series this year.
You had a little more edge in the pre-show.
That's exactly what the topic was.
There's a little more tone to it.
Your one main reason why the Tigers will or will not compete for a World Series this year.
He's a mini Skip Bayless.
He became a little bit tentative. I guess that layoff between show prep and the show kind of got to him.
Lost some edge.
He's back right now.
I'm back.
Let me throw the number out, 248-539-9797. Now, per Terry's rules, I'm not allowed to tell you why they will or won't because I poison the jury. So I will allow the room to have their opinions first, and then I will tell you the real reason why they will compete for the World Series or will not. Continue.
All right, the Tigers will compete for the World Series this year because law of averages say they're going to be healthier than they were last year. I understand it's an aging team, and there's a lot that can go wrong because of people in their 30s and stuff like Miggy and V-Mart and things. But I think the law of averages will smile on them this year. They'll be a relatively healthy team, and this is a good baseball team when healthy. And I just think they're going to get a little bit lucky this year. And now, that's to compete for a World Series. They will do it. Compete. Not saying win, but compete.
Now, why won't they? What's the one reason they won't?
Bullpen. That bullpen is not good enough to carry them through 162 games and 3 playoff series. I don't think it's good enough.
Sully.
Yeah, the one reason they will not compete for a World Series this year is, honestly, I think inconsistent pitching. I think just really when you look at what would have to happen for them to contend for a World Series, I just look at it as everything would have to go right. They're going to have to stay very healthy. They're going to need production from all their superstars. The pitching's going to have to be very good. And I just don't think that the pitching's going to be super consistent. I don't.
See, I don't. It's interesting because and it doesn't mean either of us are right or wrong. We don't know yet, but I view the pitching as a lock.
The starting pitching.
If you look, I was just reading in all 37 Grapefruit League games this year, the starting pitching, or not just the starting pitching, the pitching was very inconsistent.
I know.
So,
but I've also said to you, and again, people can pile on if they're mad at me for it. I don't value spring training. I don't value the numbers. I don't value guys that are hot, guys that are cold, or in between.
Yeah,
Start the season and go.
We cannot go by spring training.
Right, but when you look at the bullpen, it's you can say it's fair to say that's an above average bullpen.
What? Above average what? Division I college?
No,
Above
the
what average?
bullpen, it's not lockdown bullpen by any means, but some of the predictions I've read said the bullpen's above average.
The bullpen is the equivalent of if you lit a dumpster on fire.
I'm not. Well, it feeds in my point. I'm not saying it's good because if you're going to have your young pitchers
No,
like
Mike is
Fulmer,
saying it's awful.
This bullpen's terrible.
Well, if you're going to have Fulmer, Norris, and Boyd, assumingly they're not going to consistently pitch deep into games, you're going to have to rely on that bullpen, which is average to above average. I don't think that they can handle that.
What were you reading? Above average?
This is one of the 5 worst bullpens in baseball.
It's a knock on the bullpen is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a great bullpen.
But you're saying it's above average.
I'm saying specifically if you're going to rely on your 3 young guys, Fulmer, Norris, Boyd, to pitch late into games, that's probably not going to happen because of how young they are. So therefore, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the bullpen to do well. And I don't think they're that good to do.
The bullpen's going to break them. That's going to be the problem. Here's the other thing that could break them, and nobody wants to discuss it. But you remember what Al Avila had to say in the offseason? Now, what do you do with a J.D. Martinez trade deadline? What do you do when the overtures come in for some of the aging players? What happens? How in it do you need to be? How out of it do you need to be? See, none of us can really predict that. But if mid-July comes around, and let's say you're in the middle, and that's what most teams are.
Right.
Most teams aren't ahead by 5 games or behind by 10. You're in the mix. You know what could undo them? If they decide to start selling parts. And there's no way to predict it. But if I had to name 3 or 4 teams that were going to be sellers at the deadline, the Tigers would be one of them. Because it's this huge, murky cloud. So I think it's imperative that they get hot and they get going early. Because they may not have a run in them August and September. If they're out of it, Mr. I's not here anymore. So how will they react at the first trade deadline and at the first big moment without, presumably, that Mr. I mindset being there? So if you wanted to get creative for why they won't get to the postseason, that could be the one. But I will tell you, I'm with Terry, and I apologize that it's redundant. The bullpen is really the only thing that I could come up with that's going to keep you out. I mean, you cannot sell me on Wilson and Rondon and Green and K-Rod. This is a bad bullpen. And I know we're used to it here. Seemingly every year we think the bullpen stinks. Dating all the way back to early Dombrowski.
And usually we're right.
Yeah, and this would be another bullpen where it's really bad.
Here's what I'm hoping. I am hoping that if they're in contention, don't have to be in first place, but if they're within 6 games, near the trade deadline or whatever, that the Tigers have that Mr. I mentality. We're in it to win it.
Well, then here's the problem.
But if not,
well, then you're going to get absolutely nothing for your name brand players. This trade deadline represents the last opportunity.
No, it's true.
And look, if you're like me, I think their best opportunity already passed this offseason. But a guy like JD, make no mistake, it is your last opportunity. You see what outfielders are getting. I mean, look, I like Dexter Fowler, but the Cardinals paid Dexter Fowler over $80 million over 5 years.
Right.
I mean, JD Martinez is going to get north of that. So that's your last opportunity. I think it's a very interesting season. And if this team intends on competing and these vets want to take one more run at it, you better put yourself in a good spot where selling's an impossibility. But why will they make the playoffs and why won't they? 248-539-9797. Have a little fun on opening day. I don't know what the hell's going on in Chicago. I looked at the forecast. I didn't think there was any way they were playing. But the game's not canceled yet. So we'll kind of sit and wait. Game time coming up. Coverage would begin at 3:40.
Yeah, but you know how they do. They want everybody near the ballpark, paying for parking, buying a couple hot dogs, a couple Cokes before the game. Then they'll cancel things. That's when they do things. That's the way sports works.
I hate when they do it here, too. So it's not like I'm just piling on the Chi Sox.